Welcome everyone to Cisco Canada's Virtual Kitchen. Today is a really exciting show we have for you, and we have the legend in the house today. Matt, welcome to today's show, Around the Booth, Lessons from the Edge.
Jay, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to kick off this show, Around the Booth, Lessons from the Edge, where we're going to drive some peer-based conversation around what's happened during the pandemic, but more importantly, what leaders are doing to drive through. And really looking forward to kicking off today's episode.
Awesome. And we'll be right back with some legends and Matt. God, I was like, I said we have legends in the house, and then I said you are a legend.
Well, legend's a big word. That's a lot of pressure on a first show, but I hope that we can deliver some great conversation for the audience today. But I see where you're
going. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to let you do the intros of these gentlemen that we have in here, and they are truly, when you look at their history, I tell you, I was thinking about this morning. The amount of history that we have on today's show is probably over 100 and some years experience in this industry, and I'm just blown away. So thanks again. I'm going to let you do the intro of bringing these amazing gentlemen into the show today.
You're welcome. I just will do a brief introduction and let them tell a little bit about themselves and their businesses. But I chose these leaders strategically because the design of the show is to bring leaders forward who are going to vulnerably share from an honest position. But both of them are remarkable leaders in our industry. Looking at Dominic from Pizza Nova, having one of the largest family-owned quick service operations in North America, but also what he's doing to lead innovation, growth, and change, I think is the value he could bring to the audience. And I think Sean and his team at Fab Restaurant Concepts, really what they've done as one of the largest owned pub and restaurant groups in the country, in Canada, but the size of their operation, their ability to scale, and how they've been able to navigate that overly competitive pub restaurant space in the last couple of decades, in the last 15 years since I've had a chance to work with Sean. We're going to talk a bit about the business and the tactics, but I really wanted to bring leaders forward who are going to share in a way that I hope will connect with you, whether you're an independent operator or a national chain. We're going to experience share here so we can collect as a community and hopefully land some of our sharing so it really hits for us, so we can act differently inside of our own operation. So with that, I'd love to start off with Sean. Sean, tell us just a bit about yourself, your operation, your team, and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today. It's a great honor to be part of this show. My name's Sean Bailey. I'm the president and co-founder of Fab Restaurant Concepts. We're a 9-unit restaurant company in Toronto. We've been in business for about 22 years now. This is our 22nd year. And we employ... it's a seasonal business, so we employ anywhere from 350 in the slow times up to 600 to 800 people in the summer.
Awesome. So really large operation when you look at some of your, especially your waterfront properties here in Toronto, which is where your operation is based, and some of the landmarks like Brazen Head. We're talking big volume restaurants, large teams, significant capacity, and some pretty high sales volumes, which adds some challenge to the operation and especially to the people side. So I'm excited to dive a little bit more into that as we chat today. And next, I'd love to introduce Dominic, or have him share this, another great friend of mine like Sean. But Dominic, introduce yourself and your company and your size and your team.
First of all, thanks, Matt, for having me on the show, and Jay as well with this platform through Cisco. This is awesome. So thank you to everybody, and glad to be on. I'm the president of Pizza Nova. It's a family-owned company. We've been around since 1963, so we're hitting our 59th year this coming May. So it's been an awesome ride, and we can continue on. So we have approximately 150 locations, close to 3,000 people that work for the brand. We're mainly franchise based. And we run call center and so on and so forth, distribution, and so on and so forth from our company. So that's who we are, and we love making pizza and delivering great experiences to people.
Love it. So if you're in the audience out there and you're hearing this, we wanted to have a little bit of a dynamic. So we have, restaurant space, Sean bringing that experience forward, and we have Dominic in the quick service space. But again, often in these calls, we look to these celebrity leaders or leaders driving these large brands. But I promise you, if having a chance to spend significant amount of time with both Sean and Dominic, what we're focusing on today is the leader, is the experience. There's success leaves clues. So how do these gentlemen and their teams scale the business that they have? And it really is people driven. So that's what we're going to drive through today and discuss more. Jay, before we get going, I see it pop up there. Anything to add as we talk about our intros or before we really get into Sean and Dominic sharing?
It's interesting because I always, I always am interested in the discussion around leadership in our industry. Because our industry really, I think, has a success with leaders. And you see a lot of operators, opening and closing, the old saying, 90% of the restaurants close the first year and it goes up and that percentage increases each year. I think the success, especially with these gentlemen that we have on the show today, both their success is coming also from the fact that you're great leaders and it applies to your business. And I don't see that all the time. And I've met with thousands of restaurants over my career. And I always go, you know what? You can tell a good leader, it's going to have a good business. And you see that with the success of both of your operations. And I get excited about it because I get empowered. And I hope we can also empower other people to really understand what it means to be a good leader and also the drive it gives our industry and our restaurants out there. And they connect. If you're not a good leader, guess what? You're probably flipping restaurants or closing and opening them, and sometimes you gotta look in the mirror, right? So it is awesome to have both of you on the show, and I'm stoked, and I'm going to listen a lot too, and learn. So thanks, Matt.
No problem. And just to go a little bit deeper on that point, I think anybody listening or watching this recording is someone who's looking to grow and advance inside their career. So they are leaders, and often the bottleneck in an operation, and this is my experience working with hundreds of different leaders or companies, is the bottleneck in an operation is the ability for the leader to move forward, but in some ways respectfully get out of their own way and inspire those around them. And it's my biggest failure in my career. It took me a decade to really get out of my own way to see the growth of the company. But what we're hoping through our share here is how do we share experiences now? So if you're in year 1 or year 2 or year 5, you can take something from today and hopefully help you not go through as much challenge, stress, and possible pain that everybody on this call has gone through. And the other design is COVID has taken away community and connection. And what we want to do is drive peer-based conversation, peer experiences, best practices, but really just connect. We compete so much with each other on certain streets or neighborhoods, but how do we step back and just really share with each other so we can raise our industry? Because we all know we need it as we rebuild and rebound from the pandemic. The more that we work together, the more success that we'll have. So we're going to jump right into this. There's a few questions that we framed out. If you saw kind of the promo reel or sizzle reel that Jay put together, and I'm going to take Sean through a couple of questions where he can share. I'll draw on Dominic's experience. But we wanted to dive into a few things. And the first question is going to Sean is, what's been the number one challenge or struggle that you experienced over the last couple of years? And it is going to focus on the pandemic, but I think there's issues probably that were just magnified. I say that COVID magnified pre-existing challenges prior to the pandemic. But what have you gone through in the last couple of years that has been most challenging for you, Sean? And we'll flesh that out, talk it through a bit, and see what we get to the root of here.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. COVID sort of kicked everyone in the butt. It's sort of we have to somehow survive, but at the same time we've got to innovate. And whereas before I can see us thinking about staying in our lane and not trying to admit a lot of new things, COVID, we threw everything at the wall and see what's going to stick. And that was actually a really exciting part, is that my team was able to create all kinds of different guest experiences through takeout, meal kits, you name it, we tried something different. We tried ghost kitchen, and a lot of those stuck, but it also gave the ability for everyone to feel comfortable and give some new ideas. So we were happy with that. And also, I would to say staying motivated was probably the number one challenge. And obviously, there's a lot of dark days early on in COVID when we did, there's no subsidies. We didn't know what was happening. But I have to say that my team kept me motivated throughout the whole thing. We would have our Teams or Zoom calls, and I'd log in. Okay, what's the sales today? What's going on? How's everyone feeling? And by the end of it, all these ideas and everyone's positive. We finish it. It's like, all right, time for me to get moving too. I got to lead this team, and we got to keep everyone motivated, and let's keep going.
And I really appreciate what you shared there on the challenging and the dark days. And I think often as leaders, when we're going through those challenging times, we can feel alone. Like often a human behavior is the more challenge we get, the more we isolate ourselves. But kind of, is there a point where there was a morning you woke up, you're having a coffee, or maybe it was, at the end of the night having a dinner, or maybe a little bit later in the night having a scotch or something like that. But was there a time in this experience where just for yourself, it felt heavy? Because I want people to know that there's people going through this still right now. Like the most recent closures or challenges or restricted holiday season, no matter where you were in Canada. But what was kind of the point where you just sat down and said, this is hard, but now I'm going to do something about it? And that's what we'll get into next. But kind of what some of the most emotional points that you experienced personally during the pandemic?
Well, I think there was a number of them, and usually they happen at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when couldn't sleep. You get up and you're alone with your thoughts and just thinking, okay, what's going to happen here? And then a lot of times it's what's the worst that can happen, and then you try and figure out, okay, what's the worst, and can I get out of it? And you just went back to our experience and sort of belief in Fab and the belief in everybody that works at Fab, that we've been there for 22 years. We've not seen worse than this, but we've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, and we can get through it. We just got to work together and stay aligned and stay connected, and we'll get through this.
And if I'm out there listening, and what I hear from Sean, and really as a coach, my job is to listen to language. But Sean said that there's a point as human beings, we either move away from pain or we move towards pleasure. And most of us move away from pain. It's even 80, 90%. So there's this point where Sean's sitting there, it's late at night, can't sleep. I can relate to that fully, Dominic, I'm sure you can as well. But then this innovation period, this pivoting, if we want to use a pandemic word, and we talked about all this innovation that happened inside the restaurants, but then we tried things, we tried delivery, ghost kitchen, all of these elements Sean talked about in his open. But if you want to hear what he ended on there was, then it came down to communicating and connecting with his people. So that's, if we look at the pattern of, there's a point for all of us where we decide to shift and change. And once we get where we're not going to accept where we are, no matter the size of your operation, biggest or a relatively owner-operated business, there's a point where we'll choose to change. And from your side, Sean, what did you learn about yourself as a leader, and what did you start to do to rebuild and rebound? If we could talk a little bit about your self-reflection, but how did you create that connection with your team? What was the shift? Because a lot of teams I get my phone rings every day of people disconnecting, not coming together during this pandemic. So.
Yeah, the key was we did weekly Teams calls. That was really important. As hard as it was to get everyone together and talk about the lowest sales we've ever had in our life, but we kept doing it. And we had some laughs on the calls. We had some innovation. We kept thinking about what's going to happen this summer. What's the training program going to look like? So we're always looking towards the future. And once we were able to get open again, I made it a point to do a lot of one-on-ones with the GMs and the chefs, and that's something that I've learned is really important, even for my mental health. Just so I can connect with them and I know what they're doing and how they're feeling as well. Because we talk about leadership. If we don't have a good team, who are you going to lead? You're going to lead nobody. So it's important that the team is strong and they believe in you and believe in the message.
And what I love there is often we share, we want to be doing one-on-ones or having weekly team meetings. And we think as leaders, we're doing it for them. And I often have leaders commit to a weekly meeting frequency or a one-on-one, because what Sean just shared there is the more I connected with my people, the more energy I got, the more innovation I experienced. And, what he shared, in our conversations as we chatted outside of this is that consistent communication built trust on all sides. But if you see Sean's physical reaction there, the actual committing to focus time to keep his team connected. And now that we're open, this doesn't stop. Like if we need it now more than ever as operations continue to ratchet up into the spring. But if you hear anything there, is that I took as much as I gave through having a consistent meeting structure. Sean, would you agree with that? And what?
No, totally, and really realizing who needs a bit more attention, or where do I need to be? Do I need to be in finance today, operations? Where do I need to be so that I'm feeling comfortable and that person is feeling comfortable?
Awesome. And what's the best innovation, or what's the happiest moment you had in one of your team meetings, or the best thing that you heard, or the most laughs? Like, what's just, if we want to just share an experience of you brought your team together and out of a meeting, just something magical happened. What's one thing, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here, that just you got off the call and said, wow, I'm really happy I did that. Proud of my team.
Oh, I think it was probably letting go a little bit. I think it was nice to log into a call a week later and hear about things that we had talked about, and actually, they're implemented. We saw sales growth week over week, and that everybody was excited about what they just did. Whether it was an invitation or trying to do a BOGO, or getting out and talking to the community, or just trying something new.
Yeah,
which was great to see.
Love it. And then just as we'll switch over to Dominic, then I'm going to weave these conversations together so we can get some dialogue. But as we do, learning what you've learned over the last couple of years, what's your number one focus, for yourself and your team heading through 2022 that you're going to double down on? If we all have a single focus, like the Super Bowl coming up, there's a single focus for the remaining teams. Although I wish the Bills were there, they're not. But for the teams that are remaining, there's a single focus. For the Leafs, if anybody, I know there's a lot of people booing me across Canada now for bringing up the Leafs on a call, but the Leafs go also win the cup. So I appreciate everybody in Calgary, Vancouver, Montreal right now, but hey, we're in Toronto. I'm in Toronto. So what's that number one thing, Sean, that is going to lead to success this year?
I think, again, staying connected with the team, making sure I'm present with the team, and listening to their concerns, their ideas, because we saw so much innovation during the lockdown and the last 2 years that I want to keep that going and keep that thriving.
So just to hear that the ability to be present, there's a great book, Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty, that I read in 2021. And Jay Shetty says the average human is present 8 minutes a day. So I'm not looking for us to be, and this is decades of study. So if we were present another 2 minutes a day, just to really be there for our people, because the perception is we're busy, we're running, there's complexity, there's stress. But what I've seen in Sean, when I've watched him meet with his people, it's not just that phones are away and simple things, that he's present and he's there. So thank you, Sean, for sharing on those topics. Jay, anything to add, just as you kind of hear in the background there before we switch to Dominic, about what you might hear, or we'll continue rolling here?
I think a couple things that I just get inspired with Sean was talking about is just that whole innovation, right? Like I love Sean, that you did virtual cooking demos to people that they could sign up, and I think that's what got me excited through COVID. As soon as the lockdown happened, it was, and I come from an innovative family. Innovation's a big part of my life. Innovator, I would tag myself as, and to see that stuff when the COVID hit, it was like innovation everywhere. People were creating different things, and I believe innovation is connected to leadership big time. I believe there's a big part of it. I believe leaders are innovators, and you go back to the people that have changed the world that we look at and we read and we watch. There's a big innovation part to them. So I love that. I love the stories. I love the connections. I love the innovation. I love staying connected to the people through the pandemic. All those key points that you're doing is just phenomenal. I just think it's so critical. I always say this to Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek is one of my favorite speakers out there, innovator leaders, other than Matt. Just be careful, Jay. Is he always says, all you have to do is just make your people feel safe, and they will just do amazing things. And I truly believe in that all the time, and everything I do is just make people feel safe, because they're always worried about something or whatever. And through COVID, there was so much worry going on. And I tell you, we had amazing leaders over here at Cisco that just made us feel safe. and took care of us. And I see that from the restaurants that made it through, and their staff and people like yourselves. I guarantee it, you made your people feel safe, and I think that's really awesome to hear. So there's my 2 bits.
Awesome. And one thing that I would add to Jay and Sean there is the innovative side, and as we draw Dominic into the conversation now, is there is innovation, but I also see disruptor or disruption across Jay and Cisco. How I met Jay is I reached out and I said, this is not a pump for Cisco on this, but it is. I said, Jay, there's people that are winning the pandemic as suppliers, and there's not, and you're winning because you're disrupting and bringing value to the market. Sean disrupted his team by communicating. Sean disrupted his team by his community by innovating. They want to be their neighbor's first choice as a pub design and a restaurant option design. But just that disruption in the market is an opportunity. It's sitting there for us to take right now. And we have a choice. And I think if you looked at the patterns of these three gentlemen and future people on the show, is we really are the innovative side, but disruption is the execution of innovation, consistent execution, relentless execution. So,
hey Matt,
yep.
can I ask both Dominic and Sean this? Because thank you for including me. I think you did into those 3 guys. Is on the disruption side. Do you guys find it scary sometimes? Being that disruptor, or right? Do you find it scary, Sean, Dominic?
It's a lot of risk.
It's a lot of risk, right?
A lot of risk, but that's COVID is all risk now. That's like, this is nothing. I made it through COVID, so that was the riskiest part.
Dominic, what do you think? Did you find it scary being that guy?
To a certain degree, yes, because you're not sure what's going to happen on the other end, right? I mean, it's as Sean said, it's a risk, but sometimes we have to take risks, and as leaders, that's what we do, and as innovators, as you said, that's what we do. We need to take that risk, and you're going to have your followers, and you're going to have the ones that just say, what are you thinking? You're crazy. They're going to throw darts at you. But at the end of the day, you're not going to win them all. But we try to do the best for our organizations and first and foremost our people, because the people want to be part of a winning team. They don't want to be part of a losing team.
So I want to jump in on that just one more time. Sorry, Matt.
No.
Is that I guarantee it, both of you allow for mistakes to happen.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. And you guys 100%. Probably embrace them into a point.
Listen,
I remember saying to one of my team, this is a few years ago, it was way before COVID, is if I don't see you making mistakes, you're not trying to do something different, right? Because not all of them are going to be a home run. And when I don't see people making mistakes and you think you're hitting a home run all the time, I know it's not going to work. I know there's problems in there or whatever. It's just not the case. But I remember as one slide I put up, it's like, make mistakes, embracing mistakes. And I know that you're learning and trying new stuff. And you see how many companies are like, well, I don't know how to innovate in this and that, because you're probably not embracing mistakes or failure, right?
Yeah, we can't be perfect. I mean,
it can't be perfect, right?
Perfect. We're going to make mistakes. It's just, what do we learn from them, and how do we, steer them back onto the right course, if you will, right?
Our industry sometimes doesn't allow, though, that much mistake room because of how difficult our industry is.
Well, to that point, Jay, I think it's because we're trying to please a customer. That we're as good as our last meal.
Yeah, exactly. I like that.
Yeah, so it's hard, right? Definitely, very difficult.
Well, we got comments coming through. No, we don't.
So the ability to make mistakes is, there's guest facing mistakes, and then there's backstage innovation and mistakes. And I think, allowing permission for our teams to make mistakes that don't necessarily negatively impact the guest experience, just we're trying to get better. And one question in outside coaching that I've asked both Sean and Dominic is, are we playing to win or are we playing not to lose? And somebody asked me, my coach asked me that question, and I was very offended. But it's a question I ask all of us. Like, now is not the time. You want to be, within your own comfort zone. But playing safe is dangerous right now. We want to play to win. And again, if we look at the patterns of Dominic and Sean, is they're playing to win inside their own businesses. And Dominic, to go a little bit deeper, and not sure if you have a common thread with Sean or not, but what was your number one challenge that you experienced during the pandemic, and the thing that kind of really stood out most for you as you've navigated through these last couple of years?
This for me.
This for you, yeah. Dominic,
okay, sorry. Matt, I think one thing I should say, we were lucky enough to be deemed essential because we're QSR and we're delivering takeout. So by the most part, so unlike Sean, where they had to close their restaurants, and that's a whole another. I commend Sean and his team for what they've done. But I mean, it is, we are a little bit different in that case. So, but however, when the pandemic hit, the bottom opened up, and we didn't know when we were going to hit the bottom because everything just stopped. Government said everybody stay home, and so on and so forth. And we're mainly a franchise-based system. When in our system, as I kind of summarize it, we're a collection of small businesses under one brand. And, a lot of our franchisees who have spent or have invested, I should say, sometimes their life savings into our brand, they don't know what's happening either. And everybody's, looking to the leader, and here I am, the leader, and I don't know where to go, and so on and so forth, because this is all, as the magic word that was used right at the beginning was unprecedented. So it definitely was very difficult. And, until we got ourselves, organized, and how do you organize? And it's by communicating, and you continue to communicate and continue to talk to everybody. But one of the biggest challenge that I found during that, especially that time, and continues on till today, but the biggest thing was the mental health, because we're talking with people, we're communicating, and we're all going off on different ramparts and so on and so forth, that we don't know why is this coming about, and so on and so forth. And that, at the end of the day, that includes me as well. Listen, I'm not perfect. I've had bad days as well, and it's going to happen. But I mean, the thing is over the period of time, sometimes we get caught in a rut. And throughout this challenge, throughout this couple of years, I find that sometimes we all got caught in a rut, and we have to get out of that rut, if you will.
And Dominic, how did it, because there's so much power in saying that, right? So a lot of leaders I talked to needed to have the answer. They felt like they had to have the answer. What I just heard you say is there's certain points where nobody had all the answers, but you're able to take your power back by not trying to present an answer, but to say that at times you were in a rut. At times, you had to communicate when there wasn't necessarily clarity. As such a successful family-run business, how did that feel for you? Probably for one of the first times, I'm sure there's been others, but one of the first times in this dynamic, not to have the answer. How did that feel for you as a leader?
It's stressful, Matt. I think it becomes very stressful because everyone's looking for you to give the right answer, whatever that right answer may be. And in this type of environment, I don't think there is a right answer, because somebody will say, well, no, that's the wrong answer. Somebody will say, well, that's the right answer for themselves. So we're trying to please everyone as much as we can. And, it was difficult, and it still is difficult, right? I mean, we're open, and when everybody else is in lockdown, and the government is telling everybody to stay home. So we're having issues with our franchisees, their staffing, and everybody. I mean, it's because there's too many mixed messages out there, and it's hard to take those messages and kind of, use it to try to gain and say, no, we're open, we're allowed to stay open. We're here for you. Come back, and and so on and so forth. So it's. One thing is that we need to, and the biggest thing is communication, and that's how you get through it. And I think that's what we've learned.
And one thing that I love in that, and I've had my phones ring a lot, and Dominic, I've had somebody push me, and even Jay share with me that it's okay for it not to be okay. you know, at a certain point. And that's like, as leaders, like we're designed and hardwired, whether we built it ourselves or it came from our childhood experiences or whatever it is, we're hardwired as leaders to have the answer. And there's a little bit of freedom and, you know, taking our power back. And again, what I heard in this, it's okay for it not to be okay, but you kept communicating.
Yes, definitely. And you know what, and you do hear from your people too, like even from our franchisee group and so on and so forth. You know, there's a lot of them that would reach out and say, you know what, thank you for clearing it up, or whatever the case may be. You know, they understand the situation that everybody's in, and they're grateful for being open and so on and so forth. But you know, throughout the pandemic, you know, we kind of from a support office point of view, we had our district managers continue to visit our locations or call and speak to the franchisees. We continued with, you know, moving forward. Even we had a couple new store openings. We had, you know, some menu innovation. So we continue to strive and try to normalize things, although in a lockdown environment. So, you know, things took a little longer, took time, but we got through it.
So Matt,
yeah,
I'll jump in here on a question. We have a question here from Adam, and Adam, thanks again for sending your question in there. What suggestions from both of you? We have a lot of people that watch our show and stuff like that are small, independent, single, restaurants, single lunch spots, small little bistros. What would you say from your experience? Because you all started with a small one place restaurant at one time. What would you say to someone in that, I guess, sphere of our industry that only has one location right now, to keep moving and to build their business right now? You know, through COVID, they've been rattled. What recommendations or suggestions or even inspiration comments you might say to those folks out there right now? They're going to be listening to this.
Well, that's a great question. I think
it is a great question. It's not my question, I wish it was, but it's a great question, Adam. There you go.
I think, you know, we got to, as you said earlier on, Jay, we're an industry that's very resilient, and I think that that is a great trait that restaurateurs, entrepreneurs have, is that we continue to strive and try to continue to do better, and we got to keep our heads up. Yes, it's been tough, and through this type of pandemic, as Sean could attest to, that, you know, they had to close stores and they pivoted certain different ways. And I've had a lot of friends that are in that situation as well. I think we got to keep our heads up and really believe that it's going to come back, and we're going to strive as an industry again. I truly believe that, because as humans, we need to get out. I mean, we're doing this virtually because of the situation. But you know what? Wouldn't this be a great presentation?
We'll have you.
You know, when you showed at the beginning, the kitchens and the food, we'd be all together in some kitchen and enjoying breaking bread as well. So
that's funny, yeah. Me and Matt were talking about that, like around the booth. Be like, yeah, we're all in the booth chit-chatting, this and that. Oh, those days will come. Those days will come.
Yeah, so I think we got to keep our heads up and keep positive, and you know, it's tough. Believe me, I understand it. I mean, as I said, mental health is one of the hardest things to get through, because we get down very quickly. You know, it's another day of closure, another day that I got to make payment to something, and I got nothing coming in, and so on and so forth. But you know, and that's tough. So if regarding the small restaurateur, you know, definitely take advantage of all those government programs that were available. I hope you did, because it does help get through help you get through it. And, you know, stay positive and get your people back in slowly. And, you know, it's almost a restart. We got to get back, start training again, because training and coaching your people is important, because you can't just open the doors and think that everybody's ready to roll again. There's a reset. And if you give, in our industry, as I said earlier, it's all about the meal and the last meal that you had with them, but give them that great human interaction with the customer coming in. It might be a new customer. It may not even be your old customer that comes in any longer. So it's how you treat them and give great experience. And that's my I guess you can say 2 cents worth.
I think it's a full nickel. It's good.
Was that a full nickel?
The full nickel.
Thanks, John.
No, I would echo what you said. We're definitely a resilient industry. I do hate the word pivot, though. I'm so sick and tired of it. But I like innovation or surviving, whatever you want to say. But as a restaurateur, I think what your guest wants. They want to be back in your restaurant. They want to interact. So how do you connect with your guest again somehow? If we're going to be reopened soon, but when we were closed, so is it a virtual cocktail class, pizza making class, whatever? Because people still want the same things. People are going to come back and we're saying, it'll be the new normal, somewhat. But I think at the same time, people still want to connect. They want to come into our restaurant, into our spaces. They want to have a great experience. And as restaurateurs, we know what that is. We're good at it, and I'm sure that person is great at it. So think about that. How do you make sure the guest has a great experience? How do you invite your employees to come back, make them feel safe, get them excited about it? Because you got to remember, they've even tougher than us. I mean, I'm not sure how they survived on some of that, the subsidies. It was really tough.
And I appreciate it, Jay. Let me know if there's more to tie, but I just, in respect to kind of looking at closing out our show, we didn't script this, but you have two leaders, one restaurant-based business, one QSR-based business. But if I'm listening to this, I didn't hear tactics. I didn't hear capital investment. I didn't hear all of these changes. I heard it. The foundation is communicating and engaging with our people that are going to lead our restaurants forward to create a connected experience with our guests, whatever that looks like for you. So I think the exciting part is we all have people, whether you're a solopreneur or you're a team of 3, or you have a team of thousands like Dominic and hundreds like Sean, that our results, we can't do it alone. You don't have to do it alone, but it's communication is the foundation of trust. And then obviously we need to stay focused on designing a remarkable guest experience to draw people back inside the 4 walls of our restaurant. And if everybody takes a little bit away from that, and Jay, I'll let you close us out here. Okay. I think it will lead to more clarity and focus for, I've taken a lot from both of you and I really appreciate it. Because our wiring in our companies, everything we do is relentlessly about our guest, or what we call our customer. And if we've lost that plot, we'll lose the game. Jay, any thoughts to close us out?
No, first of all, I just want to thank all of you, Dominic, Sean, and just thanks again for sharing your stories, your information, stuff like that, inspiring. And I'm so glad you're still around, because I'm coming to Toronto to both check your places out. Not all the 100 and some you have there, Dominic.
No problem.
I will definitely order your pizza. First of all, if you haven't listened to the Pizza Nova song, check it out on YouTube. There's I was noticing there's over 100,000 listens of that song. I hope you get royalties from YouTube on that. But by the way, that's crazy, and it is catchy, because I was caught myself this morning. I was actually listening. It's catchy, but thank you again, and Sean, thanks again for your inspiration and stuff like that. What you're doing with your pubs, and I just love it. And the virtual experience, I saw that, and I was like, man, that's a great idea. I wish I was doing that. I kind of am doing that. But and then Matt, thanks again for your inspiration on leadership. It's so important in our industry. I think the other thing, just at the end there, is comments back to what Adam was talking about. Don't do this alone. Don't do this alone. And this doesn't mean that we have to get mushy and be together and stuff like that. But don't do this alone from your business and get out there and try to, I don't need the government, programs, or I don't need to connect. The biggest success that I've heard through the pandemic, and I've interviewed 300 and some different shows, is the people that actually got together. And I may have shared an idea or a marketing strategy, got on a call, did a show like this, whatever it is. The strengths came from being together. And our industry became really small, I felt, because everyone started knowing everyone and started helping each other out to different shows and different comments, different events and whatever. But don't do it alone. And reach out to distributors. right? Like this one, maybe here, right there, that one, and we will help you, and we have every resource there is, and use them. Right, we have teams to do that, and there's teams out there, and there's companies out there that will do that. But definitely use the government programs, use whatever you can, but don't do it alone. Don't think, and trust me, I've seen so many places that tried to and they just didn't make it. So don't do it alone. There's my last comments, but thank you, all of you, for being on the show, and Matt hosting your first show on our network, and it's a pleasure. So we'll say bye to you guys.
Thank you.
Right, Sean, we'll see you guys later.
Thanks,
we're gonna
guys.
try this. We're gonna try this little chat after kind of thing going on. We're gonna remove those guys. There you go. They can still hear us if they want to. Oh, they're leaving. So, Matt, thanks again. What a great show to be able to listen to these industry legends, like 32 years, 22 years. Oh,
Yeah,
that's a lot of years, man.
Yeah, you look at just the experience, and what I like most about the leaders is you talk about the amount of challenge. Like, look in the quick service space, the amount of competition in the pizza space. So how do you carve yourself out? Part of that. How do you carve yourself out a slice? And they've got quality service are the foundations of what they've done. And look what Sean's had to go through. Toronto core, financial crisis, non-smoking, pandemic. This is a 20-year history expansion. It's the odds are stacked against, but definitely some very common trends across what the two of them are sharing in fundamentally different operations. But what they're sharing is there's a pattern there that we can all learn from.
And what's funny, because we didn't get into the blame game, and I that's the best thing about what we do with our network and our shows is the blame game. I'll leave that to the social media feeds and that stuff. TikTok, but not to throw a name out there. I'll probably get banned now. But yeah, exactly. But we didn't play the blame game. They don't do that, and I truly believe that defines a leader is ones that takes responsibility, adjust, pivots. I don't like that word, but pivots, changes, and makes things just happen. And we heard that today from these both guys, and I just thanks again for inviting them, putting this all together for us. What do you think? What are you going to do for your next show?
I've got there's a couple leaders that we have lined up. We're going to go a little bit West Coast. So we had some East Coast representation. We're going to go West. We're going to bring a couple leaders that I deeply respect. But we want to talk more about how do we start consuming motion? So how do we, just moving, doing stuff and things. Most leaders I talk to say they got to the end of their 60-hour work week and look back and say, what did I really do? Did I move forward towards my goals? So we're going to talk about the difference between motion and start talking about action and execution. We're going to talk about stop consuming. Content became free during the pandemic. So what I want you to do, and I urge you, if you just gave us 42 minutes of your time, commit to one thing, do something different. Whatever that is. And Jay shared some brilliance there, so did Dominic and Sean. But if you're going to provide the time, I encourage you to commit to action. So we're going to focus on moving from idea to some leaders that are to come through and talk about, when were they not executing, what had to shift for them, and what does an execution focused strategy look like for them, in a way that you can take it, no matter if you're Kevin, I believe his name is Kevin, or if you're somebody running a large group, it all matters on our ability to keep moving forward.
Awesome stuff, Matt, thanks again. Matt, if people want more information to contact you, where can they find more information?
The best place to go is mattrolfe.com. We have a bunch of information there. There's a bunch of free video content. We've got information on our new book, You Can't Do It Alone, an opportunity for me to...
Oh, this one right here that I happen to have right in my hand.
Oh, he's got it. Look at that.
I heard someone's reading this for you too.
Yeah, I heard there's an audiobook coming out. With somebody.
I heard so too. Right? How crazy is that? Just right there. Right?
Just happened to be there. The other thing is that
to be there.
Go on LinkedIn. We put out a video a day on LinkedIn that's looking to put out content. So I travel, I speak to leaders all day, every day. We're looking to do short 60, 90-minute clips every day of the week to take what I hear and share it with the audience. My goal is to give away as much value as possible. And I love this industry. I grew up in it. It's my home. It's my life. And if I can do anything to help us rebuild and rebound, Jay, you're working more hours than anybody in our industry right now. And we're trying to help. This isn't about a show. It really is trying to get back and help.
Exactly. So on that note, Matt, we're going to run the reel out or the trailer or whatever it is. But thanks again for doing what you're doing.
Thanks,
Jay. A lot. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.